Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at another rondo, but also about what happens when we have not ideal numbers. So for this rondo we actually need 10 players. But what about if we had 9 players or 12 players? How could we adapt this exercise to make it work? And this is something that happens every training session. Now, I will mention, if you're new to this channel and haven't seen my other 2 videos on rondos, there's probably 4 or 5 in each of those 2 videos, so please do check them out. It's just called Rondos Part 1 and Rondos Part 2. So this is one that doesn't feature, but again, like I said, we're going to have a look at the roles of each player, why we're doing it, and how to adapt with different numbers. So these 2 yellow players are what I call a double pivot. Most of the hockey world call it a screen. I don't even understand why that is called that. In football, it's a double pivot, and it kind of makes sense because you are the pivotal players that get the ball from the back and then transition it to the next line, essentially. So the ball pivots around you. That's why I call it a double pivot. But if you call it a screen, this is what we're practicing. So this is a great exercise to put those 2 players under immense pressure, so they get used to receiving under pressure and outletting the ball. And it's good for all the players because you have to make really quick decisions, and it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of touches on the ball. So it's a 5 reds, and the reds are dotted around the outside of the area. How big should this area be? I probably would do this like the length of a 23 to start off with, and this a quarter of the way across the widthways. You can make it bigger or smaller depending on your team. The smaller, the more high skilled the players would be, and the bigger, the younger, less skilled players. The 3 are the defending team. So technically they're all on the same team apart from the blues. So the reds and the yellows are against the blue. Don't call it a 7 versus 3 because it's all about this central pivot. These 2. So these are your 2 extra players to keep the ball with the reds. So let's, for example, move the ball around. Okay, so we've had this double pivot move to be a nice option. We've gone into the double pivot. You might then connect with each other, and then it goes wide, or you might look to put it wide on your first option. Let's say we move it here. We've got another nice leading run from the red up here. Now, the reason I've put these 2 red arrows is this is moves we don't want the central double pivot players or the central screen players to make. Because if this player runs in here or here, they're encroaching on the space from this red player and this red player. And also, if they leave here, what's happened in the middle? We've got a huge space. So both of those scenarios are not good for us. So why is this run negative? Well, if this run's negative, we have compressed the space. And as an attacking team, that is the opposite thing you want to do. Why? Because then the 3 defenders would just really compact that space and they'll win the ball back, unless something magical happens. So you don't want to run into each other's space. So the 2 pivotal central players, you stay central. You make all your lead-in runs. You try and get your separation from the blue players in the central area. Something like that. That could be a nice pivotal run here. But we chose that option. That's absolutely fine. So what we're looking for is maybe 5 passes, maybe 10 passes, and that would be a goal. So if the coach is watching this, every 5 passes, go, right, 1-0 to the Reds, or every 10 passes, depending on the skill level of your team. When the Blues do get it, dodgy pass, or maybe they've tackled them, then what you need to do is work as a 3. So I've just made some nice leading runs here, and you can score in any of the 4 goals. So where I coach, I'm very lucky that I have quick little small goals, kind of ice hockey size, that just pop up really quickly on the side of the pitch, and I can just put them here. So if you only had 2, you could just put them at either end, in the corners, whatever you want to do. If you don't have any, you just have to use cones, or maybe put a tire down. You just have to hit the tire. But when they do that, they get 3. So you want to make this much heavier weighting than just the 1, so like 3, maybe even 5, depending on the team, because it can be quite demoralizing for a 3 against 7. So make it in their interest, make them encouraged to run and press and chase that ball. and you can talk about how they should attack, as how they should defend, as a triangle ideally, and just work out where they want the ball to go, and when it goes there, they're going to press that space and try and win it back. So yeah, said that. So if they score in any goal, that's for 3 points. So then you have to, as a coach, keep score. So it could be 3-1 now to the Blues, for example. And you could play first to 10 goals. That's pretty easy. Or you could just play for 2 to 3 minutes and keep the score and see which of the three were the most successful. I think I probably prefer that one, because then you can swap the roles really quick. If you just play first to 10, you might be doing that one game for ages, and then not many people have practiced being the double pivot. So that's why we're doing it. Well, what happens if the ball goes out of play? So ideally, the coach will have a load of balls. Let's say the coach is down here by this goal, or even over here. When it goes out of play, the coach is just going to feed a new ball in. And who put it out? So if the reds and the yellows put it out, just feed a ball to the Blues. It is completely up to you, but just feed a ball in. So what about if there was less or more players than 10? Well, if there was only 9, you could get rid of one of the pivot players. That's okay. They're still practicing receiving, checking over their shoulder, bouncing the ball out. They're still practicing that key skill. Or you could keep the double pivot. So when I've done this, I've kept the double pivot and just lost one of the 5 on the outside. I think I preferred that, because it's also a bit more movement for these red players. So I'd probably keep the double pivot and rotate that. Now, I also have other rondos. So if you wanted to keep it like this and then do a separate rondo for like 6 players, you could do that. But I'd probably run 2 at the same time if you've got help as well in the coaching session, and just reduce the reds. You might have to reduce the blues as well, but you just play around. But I would keep the double pivot. Right. What about if more or less? So this is what I often have to do. So here's my ideal scenario, and I had 2 extra players. So I just created 2 pitches, only 2 goals in each one. So this pitch, imagine it's exactly the same size and dimensions as before. Just for this video, I just made it kind of turn the other way. But if you can imagine it this way, it's fine. So the Blues are defending. The reds and the yellows are keeping the ball. If the Blues get it, they have to score in either this goal or this goal. Again, that'd be worth 3, and every 5 or 10 or whatever number of passes you decide, that would be 1 goal for the reds and the yellows. Now, if the ball goes out of play, then you feed it. So the coach is where these 3 balls are here. You're going to feed it to the other side. Now, because these have the possession, what's going to happen is all the central players are going to move over. So they'll keep the ball. So they're trying to get the 5 passes now, and the other 3 Blues will also join them, and they'll take those outside positions. The 2 central pivot players, you're going to remain as the central pivot players, the double pivot, the double screen. So they're also going to come over. So now these 5 Blues and these 2 yellows are keeping the ball. Now, make sure it's not the same people every time, but 3 reds are going to also come in and try and win it. And we just do exactly the same on this side. We've got 2 reds waiting over here in the wings, but now it's the Blues and the yellows keeping the ball, and the reds are trying to score in the red goals. If the reds are successful, they get 3 points. If the Blues and yellows get 5 passes or 10 passes, they get 1 goal. And it's a race to 10, or again, you can play for 2 to 3 minutes. So again, if it went out of play, we just feed it this side. All the central players will move over, and 3 of the Blues will then start to defend, just like before. Yeah, I think 2 to 3 minute rotations is the best thing for this exercise. Okay, so that's for another video. As a little spoiler alert, Belgian box. What coaching points for this? I would really encourage these pivotal players to look over their shoulder, so pre-scan before they get it, to see where the pressure is, see if they can turn. Ideally, when it comes into a central position, we want to then get it out wide, because the ball has been pressed where it is, it comes in and it goes out. What you don't want them to do is turn on a forehand or into a forehand stick of the defender. The only time they should turn is when they've pre-scanned and there's no one there, or the person playing the ball to them then gives them the call turn. So that's your coaching points for your double pivot, and not running into the space on the outside, not compressing the space of other players. Okay, so hope you like that, and good luck putting it into practice. Bye.